Hello, hello. Chris here with another episode of the Make It podcast. And I'm here with my good friend and my co-founder, Nicholas Buggs, and our esteemed guest, Angus Benfield. Guys, say hello.
Hey.
There you go. What's up, man? I was doing it again. I was about to fight Angus for that one. You know,
Sorry,
who's going to go
I jumped
first?
in too fast. I didn't.
No, you did it. It's perfect.
I got nervous. Am I supposed to say hi now? Let's do that again.
Right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Get
5,
back
4,
in
3,
there.
2, 1.
Yeah.
Hello. No, it was great. It's part of the charm of this.
Perfect.
It's part of the charm of this little show we have here. I do have some housekeeping, Nick, before we get started in our conversation with Angus.
All right, let's do it.
And look, is it like me to give myself flowers? Yes, it is. And because I'm a guy who takes educated guesses, I take these risks. I put myself out there with opinions. And when I'm wrong, you guys can revel and roll around like pigs in my wrongness. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. And it happens so often that I just get used to it. So
Charlton Heston. Look, how do you get something wrong with Charlton 3 weeks in a row? I don't know. It's like I'm all hallucinated. Anyway, I'll never live that down. But there are times where it's sweet. It's sweet because you're right on something really big. Charlton Heston's that's not a big thing to be wrong on. I wasn't born when he was in those movies.
Right.
Okay. And Angus, we're talking about the fact that I said Charlton Heston was not in the movie Ben-Hur.
And then you said he wasn't in Ben. Wait. Then you said he was. And then he wasn't in.
Yeah, I said he was. I said he wasn't. It was weird. Anyway.
Right.
Last year, we interviewed the one and only Sophie Holland, one of the world's best casting directors. Casting director for The Witcher, casting director for Wednesday. Both are having incredible runs on Netflix. I think she cast a show with what's his? Why am I losing his name? Yeah, Idris
Elba.
Brain fart.
Yeah.
So she's just killing it. And at the end of our conversation, we talked about the fact that there wasn't a casting director award for the Academy Awards. Like, it's crazy. Like, it's a meaningful job in big motion picture.
Right.
And you just don't get any credit for it. You're just expected to just be behind the curtain. And now, with our complaining and our putting it out there and us calling some people and some other people already interested in this happening, which we mentioned on that interview in that podcast, it is now an award. You can now win an Oscar for being a casting director.
There we go.
And it all started right here on the Make It podcast.
Here. There you go.
As far as I know, we were the only podcast, period, film or otherwise, asking for a Academy Award for casting. Nick?
Giving people their flowers. That's what that is. Period. Right? Yeah, I love it.
That's what it is. Me too. I'm right
okay,
there.
Let's go, Sophie. Let's go.
Yep. Good job, Sophie. Proud of you, Sophie. You're going to win one. And hopefully you'll come back on the cast and just show it to the camera. And then we can talk about how much it weighs and how shiny it is. Right. Speaking of future Oscar winners, we have Angus Benfield here with us. Angus, why don't you tell the audience a little bit more about yourself and what we might know you for and what you're working on now?
Yeah, sure. Well, my name is Angus Benfield. I'm originally from Australia, and I've been living in the US in LA for about almost 7 years now. And I am an actor, and I also do a bit of producing, writing, directing as well. So I do a bit of sort of everything. And yeah, I mean, I've done some TV and stuff like Inventing Anna and CISLA and all those sort of things over here. But mostly I'm doing, my real passion is doing independent films. So yeah, I don't know if anyone knows me from anything. I'm still just a small, fish in a big pond, I guess. But yeah, I've done a couple of films that have come out. One, it was called The Post, which was we released in theaters. It's still on a bit of a theatrical run at the moment. And another one was The Great Turkey Town Miracle that kind of came out in Thanksgiving of last year. And yeah, and then we're just about to release a movie called The Keeper, and we're about to shoot another one called The Way to Darkness. But so basically, I kind of created a little bit of a mini studio, sort of, I guess, like Chaplin did in the early days. In the early days of Hollywood, the actors would sort of become their own studios. Obviously, got people like Tyler Perry does it these days, which is similar sort of thing
Right.
in a smaller micro version of that. So because it's but anyway, but that's kind of what I do, and I also do distribution as well. I used to have that as one of my day jobs back in Australia, so I have my own theatrical distribution platform. So which is very because that's really difficult for indie filmmakers to get into theaters, and because there's a lot of costs involved. So we figured out a way to do it a lot more economically, so we can kind of get back into theaters because that's where we also want to go when we make a movie. That's sort of what I do, really. Yeah,
It's funny.
There's
It's
so
funny,
much to
Angus.
dig
Like,
into right there.
yeah, Chris. Exactly. There's so much there, but it's like this guy is over here dripping in humility. You hear him say, like, I'm an actor. I do a little producing. I do a little directing. I do a little bit of this, man. It's like we went through the IMDb, right? We see that you have credits as an actor and credits as a producer and credits as a director and credits as a writer. You've been in film and television, theater. Like, these are all things that you are, not that you just do a little bit of, but we appreciate it. We understand that as a creative, it's like, for you, you're kind of digging into a little bit of everything. And that's pretty awesome.
Speaking of Tyler Perry, by the way, Angus, and this has the potential to be 30 minutes on its own. We'll try to make it not. But what did you think about his recent comments on Sora?
Oh yeah,
from this week. Did you read them?
Well, yes, I did actually. Yeah, and I looked it all up. Ultimately, I can understand his help in building more sound stages and all that sort of stuff. Which, look, maybe that's a smart idea. He can just have a whole lot of volume stages and digital stages, and I think ultimately that's possibly going to be the future. I do sympathize and agree with him when he talks about not having to do a whole lot of makeup and stuff. So when they can kind of age, add weight, change, all that kind of stuff digitally. Although I'm a huge fan of practical effects, I certainly understand where he's coming from that too. So I can see where he's going. But what it also made me think about is that at the same time as we push further and further into sort of an AI synthetic reality of everything, it's actually going to have an effect on audiences that sort of want to have more real and more authentic sort of viewing experience. So when you see Christopher Nolan doing something, it's always like everything's real. He blows up real things and trucks are So what I think is sort of will probably hit a bit of a tipping point because there's going to be so much of that, which is already happening where, spaceships and explosions and stuff, and they're all fake. So it might kind of create more of a kind of opportunity for independent and more authentic and even bigger films, like obviously what Nolan does, where people will sort of have more of a hunger for something that's real and authentic. Because if all we're getting fed is Taco Bell, microwavable Taco Bell, because there's no kitchen in Taco. It's just you're going to eventually say, I want something from that little food truck or something real and something authentic, which is what happened in the 90s. It was like you had this big 80s, which was a great decade of film, but they were big blockbusters. And then the 90s came, the Sundance kind of thing came, and there's all these little indies came out. So I agree. Like his business decision makes sense, but I also think, and obviously everyone's sort of freaking out when they look at the technology, and I did look at it, and you go, oh my gosh. But it has to take us to a point where we suddenly go, you know what we want? We want real. We want sort of real people. We want real locations and things like that. I mean, even with animation, I mean, it's the voice actors that get all the recognition and stuff like that. So you still need somebody real. Everyone's looking for that. I don't know if you can create an AI character. I mean, you could have maybe a character, but I don't think it's going to be something that everybody's going to love. And that's all we're going to consume. But it will be another branch of, like everything, like when radio came out and then television came out. Radio still exists. It's not as big, but so it's. Right. I mean, we're such high consumers. We're just, it's going to keep going. But yeah, I mean, he knows what he's doing, and I think that, I think it'll be interesting, and he'll probably get on the crust of utilizing that for good and helping, create bigger set pieces to his films with the lower budgets. I mean, that's kind of great. Wide shots and extras and crowds of thousands that you can kind of create digitally. I mean,
and I know that Chris has some. We both have kind of like gut feelings about it as well, right?
Mm,
There's the
mm.
business side, and we both know that. But I know, Chris, you've got some thoughts and feelings about it, and after you share yours, I'll share mine.
I was like, you should. I know you have some thoughts. You should share yours, but
We share
I
mine?
don't. I
Yeah,
don't
go
mind.
ahead, man.
I don't mind. I don't mind sharing mine. I mean, it's. I mean, it's put it out there, and I wrote a little bit about it in the newsletter. I'm going to continue to write some more stuff about it and just kind of share it. But you know, to your point, Angus, it is sort of akin to things that we've already lived through before. You talked about the 80s and 90s. When I think about the 80s and 90s, I think about the digital revolution in music because I started in music. And when you had a digital workstation and you were able to sample other people's work, you know, there was a giant, and people forget this because it's been 30 or 40 years, but there was a giant outcry against that. There was a sense that you weren't getting real music, or the people who actually created these things, you know, aren't getting their credit, aren't getting paid, or you know, sort of are being manipulated in some way. And then came music in commercials, and you started seeing the song that you proposed to your wife or husband with now in a Toyota truck commercial, and it sort of lessens it for you. So none of those things, I think, to your point, Angus, killed the other lanes that music were in. There was the giant fear that it would, right? And it hasn't happened. Now, there have been negative outcomes from that. So, for example, if you were a songwriter in the 80s, you likely were quite wealthy and could support a family if you had a number of hits. Today, that may not be true. If you can have a few hits, but you get paid so little through Spotify and Apple and other streamers that really isn't going to sustain you the way it used to. And that really is true in a town like LA or a town like Nashville, where there's a lot of singer-songwriters who once enjoyed a legacy of money, but and now the same product that's being played and presented to listeners almost the same way no longer provides the same money in return. So those are some of the negatives that come to my mind. Also, just the fact that there are certain genres that use samples so much that no new sound is created. So there's no new music. So you're always pulling from the past. And so I think this AI thing with Sora will have that effect because they will get where they want to get. There are shortcomings now. It's just not good enough for film right now, even as amazing as the videos are. I've said, you know, maybe an establishing shot, but it would be a nightmare to edit these 60-second clips or to have continuity between characters or to see the nuance in a incredibly acted performance. I think some of that's just flat out not there yet, but it will get there. So it's enough to pay attention to because it will be a tool in the toolbox of a filmmaker going forward. But the question is, Angus, do you want to be, and Nick, do you want to be a prompt maker or do you want to be a filmmaker? Because if you live on the prompt side, you know, I suppose that's going to be viewed as a type of work, but I think to Angus's point, people like filmmakers. People want to know that the person that made their film is real, that they're out there doing real stuff, had real human experiences, and maybe that attitude and sentiment will change because all life is change. But you know, I think there will be a lane for prompt makers. I think there'll be a lane for people that just make movies from prompts, just make shows from, especially in animation.
Sure. Yeah.
Because what we suffer from now, Angus, is the Disney effect. Where have you noticed recently that no matter what the race or gender of the Disney character is, they all kind of look alike? It's just getting boring. Like I don't even want to watch it. I can't distinguish anything from anything. Right? Like I need that sense of identity of the movie that you get from a human performance. That's all. Yeah. And with AI, if I prompt, give me a 14-year-old with blonde hair with a skateboard and skinny jeans, and high top Jordans, that AI is going to probably present a similar image every time. You know, if that's happening, let's say 1,000 people are prompting that around the world.
Oh yeah. Well, there's no soul.
You see what I mean?
There's nothing real there.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's all very soulless. So, and that's why we love listening to beautiful music or looking at great art or whatever it is, because there's soul behind it. There's someone's heart behind it, and that's what we connect to. And I think that's what we're going to be hungry. There'll be such a hunger for, where we just want that connection. At the moment, we're getting less and less of that. And so that's what you're saying. Like, you can't identify with anybody because there isn't anyone there. They're just
it's
fake.
And I'll jump in and give you mine, man. So there's two things I've got on this one. All right, and they're going to be relatively quick. The first one is this: my man decides to shut down operations. Right, they're like $800 million thing is just done. I saw Sora. I'm not going to do it. And I feel like that just sows fear in the industry. Right? He said people are going to lose jobs. This is going to suck. Right? I'm like, you're causing people to go crazy right now and think that AI is going to take over. Whereas Chris and I talked about, he's probably just making a different business decision. He's probably still going to do his facility. He just realizes now that he might actually need to build more systems to support the AI work that he's going to do. Right. So instead of having this thing that he wanted in his studio, he needs to make room for that thing that supports AI. He was going to do some establishing shots, you know, that required this type of space, right, to do these things, and these types of drones and these types of cameras. Well, now some of those shots can be done another way. So I think he's just re-engineering his thinking around his business decision. But what comes out is that he's so afraid of Sora that he needs to shutter everything and everybody's going to lose their jobs. And I think it's highly irresponsible either for him to say it that way or for the journalists to write it that way. And I don't know which one, right? I haven't had a conversation with the guy yet. He needs to come on the podcast. All right. So the second thing is this. Have you guys heard about Willy Wonka's chocolate experience?
I've watched the latest Willy Wonka, and I have seen that scene where you have, there's a scene in the movie that's called that, basically.
Oh, was that the scene with the black strip club?
Nope. Hey, by the way, what is a black strip club? What is a black strip club? Is it where the strip club is owned by a black person, or is it a strip club that only has black dancers, or is it literally a strip club that's painted black?
It's a strip club called Willy Wonka's Chocolate Experience. Right? Okay. So anyway,
it's a chocolate strip.
So here's what happened. In real life, here's what happened. Okay. So they had this thing called Willy Wonka's Chocolate Experience, and they were putting it out on social. I think it was on the internet, whatever. And it's like, hey, bring your kids to this experience. And they had all these awesome pictures of what the experience would look like. You could see the candy. You could see all these things. It was like awesome.
Is this like when R. Kelly named his album The Chocolate Factory?
Chocolate Factory.
The Pied Piper of R&B.
There you go. So people go to this thing. They paid, I think, $40 a pop or whatever to go to this thing. And they get there, and some of the notes that people said, it's like it looked like a meth lab. The people got there, they were calling the police. The people wanted their money back. It was some rinky-dink thing that someone had put together at Party City. The thing is that they were using AI-generated images to make it look like the experience was better and more grand and more picturesque than it actually was. So my point with that is I'm very curious of what's going to happen with Sora and other AI, because there's actually a sullying of the experience with AI happening already. People are starting to mistrust it. Like, we already know about deep fakes, right? We know about the Willy Wonka chocolate experience. You know, we know about the fact that they're using AI to basically plagiarize copywritten material, right? That's happening right now. So I think there's going to be this little, it's a little, we're on edge here. Right. We don't know which way we're going to go. There are benefits, but I think that there is a lot of, hey, I'm a little wary of what that is. And even especially in the filmmaking space, I think there is going to be a wariness with respect to people abandoning humans. Right. Like Tyler Perry was talking about, with people losing their jobs. I think there's some wariness about that. And I think that the audience is also a little wary. They're not ready to just jump in on AI totally. So, yeah, that's kind of my take on that whole Tyler Perry and Sora situation.
Yeah.
I mean, I like what you said about the business decision. I know me and you have talked about this in the past. We just
Mm-hmm.
haven't said it in front of the audience, but it's like, it's really smart. It reminds me of a story of when I actually used to work at a Christian record label. I'm not a very religious person, which is why that's a little bit ironic, I guess, if that's the right word. But it was called Word Alive Records. And boy, do I have some stories from Word Alive Records. Maybe that's not why. Maybe that's why I'm not religious. But we they had all these tax benefits, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
a church is like a special tax entity, right? And they're able to get loans and things like that. So we were going to build a big like state of the art studio there and just really blow everybody away and like let everybody know, put them on notice. Like, we're here, we're serious, we're going to make recordings here, we're going to bring in top artists, we're going to sign artists, etc. And so we were building, and this is like at the end of the 90s, early 2000s, and we were building this massive studio that had this massive board in it and control board. And for those who aren't in music, this is basically that image you have in your head of those sliders moving up and down, right? And it was automated and it was gigantic. It was amazing. And this thing was $200,000. And and what the pastor, who's kind of like the CEO, and others working there didn't quite understand, was that Apple was just months away from releasing Logic, which was just one of a slew of sort of digital workstations that were all in one. And Avid already existed, but you kind of still needed a board to play with it. But it's or you wanted one, and a lot of studios do have boards, and the boards do great. But the fact of the matter is that here you are at the end of one cycle and you don't know it, and everyone else is at the beginning of another cycle. So what you spent $200,000 on could be done for something that costs $200, which is what Logic costs for as a digital audio workstation, right? So this is kind of what happened to Tyler Perry. He is building an $800 million studio in an age where in just 1 year, that will be ridiculous. Why would you spend $800 million on a studio when there's AI? So what he's really saying is, man, I got so lucky. I pumped the brakes, and now I can spend maybe 1/100th of that and get more output, right? Like, I think that's kind of what he's thinking. You made a point, Angus, earlier about special effects. And look, I love our HMU people and the wardrobe people. They will always have work because there will always be a need for the real, like you said.
Yep.
But if you, but there's also this other side of it, which is, first of all, independent filmmakers that need to save some money, and you can digitally put makeup on or make somebody look something and it's photorealistic. That's going to be huge because we've always expected film to start costing less based on Moore's law. And this is the first time it really can do. Like, I really don't know what Red and Ari and all these companies are going to do. Like, they can no longer charge $60,000 to $100,000 for full camera kits, like where you have the batteries and everything, like in the brains and all that stuff. Like, you can't do that anymore. That's too expensive. It shouldn't cost that much. We know it's a freaking camera, and we know that there's a pretty great camera right here in your phone.
Yep.
Right. Like cut it out. Right. They're making the cost of film stay expensive because they have shareholders. Right. So AI will help with that. But here's the other thing. Me and my youngest daughter just watched The Never Ending Story. So I've seen it many times, and she had never seen it, but she has the book, and I can tell that she's not into it. I can just tell she's not into it. And I'm like, what's not happening here? Like, this was awesome. This is an awesome movie. She should find it awesome. And I'm really looking at it being objective and saying, you know what? Doesn't hold up. Not awesome. I told her after, I said, I regret something. She said, what, Dad? I said, I regret showing you this movie before you read the book. Now, in her own way, she said, well, don't regret that, Dad, because I was never going to read the book anyway. but the statement remains true, which is that if you want Never Ending Story, you must read the book, because the movie doesn't hold up, because they were using those special effects Like everything looks so fake that it
Mm.
takes you out of your disbelief. You can't even, and no shade to the dude who played Atreyu. Golly, that guy cannot. He didn't study Meisner.
Hey.
I'll tell you that. He didn't do any.
Look, I
he didn't do.
enjoyed it. Hey, it's
He
different.
didn't
It's
do
a different
any acting
lens.
study
It's a
whatsoever.
different lens when you're older. It's a different lens when you're in film than it was when we were kids,
Yeah,
man. I love that
and
movie.
when I was a kid, I
loved
didn't.
it.
I didn't
Labyrinth.
know people. I didn't know
Bro,
when people
come on.
couldn't act when I was a kid. Apparently,
Exactly. You didn't, and that's why
Like,
a lot of
he's
kids like I watch
literally-
movies with my son, and he's like, "This is great." I was like, "That was garbage, bro."
I don't know this. Maybe somebody on Quora will answer this, but I would love the answer if somebody knows this. Was Atreyu, and I don't know his real name, and again, no beef to you, no shade to you, really. I'm just simply saying, did he have to get line reads? I think I do, Angus. I think he had to get line reads. There's no way.
The boy.
There's no way he didn't have to be read every line and how to say it.
Yeah. Hey, so did
And
the
it doesn't
Olsen
hold up.
twins.
So
Leave 'em alone.
so that's true. So with
Yeah.
so with AI, my point is with AI, things that are made now, Angus and Nick, will not look dated
Mm.
necessarily in 20 years or 30 years the way the never ending story looks.
Hey,
Sort
maybe
of so
they'll look
ridiculous
cheap.
now.
Maybe they'll look cheap. Maybe that'll be the difference. It's kind of like Angus
Yeah,
was
maybe.
saying, right? And
Yeah,
I do
maybe.
want to get into Angus's
Maybe.
films, and maybe it'll look like that was AI. Like we're past that because we want the human side of things. So yeah, I just wanted to take that, as a segue, bro. And talk about The Keeper, right? I want to talk about that story because I read a little bit about it and I was like, this is cool. I like this. And it is definitely a human story there.
Yeah,
so I'd love for you to talk about what you're doing with that and what that means to you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, that's completely, there's no AI or CGI in that.
Right.
And I think that's kind of part of the sort of discussion really is that when we made that, we wanted to, I'll explain a little bit about it, but we wanted to go to the real places where the story was actually set. And that was, because we could have cheated it in, just in California and certain forests and stuff like that. We could have cheated it. So, and I think part of the story is also the story behind the story. So when you want to tell, talking about a film or anything else like that, it's always, what else is beyond, like it's beyond the four walls of the cinema. What else is beyond that? And that's where, AI doesn't go beyond that. It's just stuck, and CGI and everything's just stuck within those four walls. So that's something that we, with this story, because then I'll tell a little bit about it. It's about George Erschlam, who was he was in the army, and he during the Gulf War, and he came back with PTSD, and he was struggling with suicide or thoughts and stuff, and unfortunately in this country, there's 22 vets commit suicide every single day, and so he started to hear more and more stories of people. Some people he knew, some people he didn't. And he reached out to their families, and they would give them the name tapes, which is the name tape which they would wear on their uniforms.
Yep.
And then he put them on a loop, and his vision was to go and do a through hike, or at least maybe try to hike as far as he could on the Appalachian Trail. And the real story is that he did go there, but really he was also going there to also commit suicide with the rest and join the rest of them. And so that's kind of the beginning of the story, and we carry the story on beyond that. Obviously he didn't. Not that I want to give away too many spoilers, but the point is and that what we did with this is that we had everything that was authentic. We had the backpack that he wore. George was with us. We had the name tapes, the exact name tapes, the exact names that were the 363 name tapes. That it was quite a large amount of them. We went to exactly the same places, the same hostels, the same tracks. Obviously, we couldn't go every single, because it is 6 months to do a through hike, so we couldn't take a film crew. I mean, I could if I was Werner Herzog or somebody, it would be, but turn that into a documentary. But we did go. We were in Maine, and we went all the way to Georgia and Tennessee and Virginia and stuff, and went to all the key spots. And we went as far as we could, getting onto the actual trails with a film crew and stuff. And we were able to do that with a lot of help from other hikers, veteran hikers as well. but yeah, like the whole thing is we really wanted to be real about everything. And so even we had actors who, they were able to talk to the parents who lost their children, their 18-year-old to suicide, and everything was very, very, very real. So real that when we were filming, we would run into people all the time who were hiking, who had also had experiences where they had lost loved ones. And we ran into a young girl who was hiking, and she lost her father and her brother, who were both vets, who committed suicide 11 months apart. We met old Vietnam veterans who, still wounded from and still suffering from PTSD from that war. And we run into all these different people, and it was just, you could just see the impact. We had actors who were vets who couldn't even read the script. It was so too much for them. So everything was was like the sort of raging against the sort of AI machine in a way, and we're trying to kind of do something that is real, that is completely real, so that not only that, when people watch it, and especially, it doesn't have to be vets, but people who are struggling with PTSD and suicide and everything else like that, the idea is that it can take you from that place and help maybe get you to the next stage in life where you can actually reach out to somebody. And that's what we're also doing with the film, where we have places where people can reach out and ask for help and try to prevent more deaths that happen every day. So that's, and that's kind of what we really kind of want to do, things like that, like, because there is a lot of stuff flashing in our eyes every day, and there's so much oversaturation of stuff. But yet, as a human, as humans, we're not necessarily any happier. We're more anxious and more depressed, and and people are taking their lives all the time. So it's not helping us anyway. I don't think synthetic reality is going to really help us at all. So that's what
that's the challenge.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about. That's the thing that we're fighting. Social media and all this is in its own way a synthetic reality. And I'm just curious, like, how did this story, this idea, this project even land on your lap? It's a very interesting one.
I was just looking for scripts, and I actually went to Inktip, which was like an independent platform for writers and stuff, and it's really good. I mean, there's a lot of, Hollywood is a very kind of can be a little bit of a snooty, classy kind of be a fortress where and only certain people are permitted in, and so there's these other areas outside which are more of the indie world, and Inkit was really good because there's so many great scripts and a lot of writers, and a lot of older writers too, because I think Hollywood has a if you're over 20 and you're right, they don't want to, they have the cutoff limits like Logan's Run, they want to get so there's lots of great scripts that no one's making, and I literally found this script, and they've been trying to get it off the ground for years. It was written by Todd, and who's a active duty. He's still working in the Navy and stuff, and he wrote it, and I'm looking at this script going, what? No one's made this, and they couldn't get anyone to make it, and I was like, this is crazy. And then I look at what Hollywood's making. I go, they're not really making these stories anyway. So
exactly right. It's perfect.
So that's basically what happened. I found it that way, and we started talking, and then and then George and Todd came out, and Kenny, who was one of the co-directors, he's also a Marine, and we all got together and went for a little bit of a hike and got to know each other, and then we made a little video on that, and then we thought, okay, and then we just kept moving, and then it was a lot of logistic development of trying to figure out how we're going to shoot this on the trail, because you've got a gigantic sort of roadmap to kind of work on, and so we started that, and that took several, almost a year to kind of get all that sorted, and and that's kind of it, just kind of one of those things where we just, the worlds kind of collided, and we ended up making it. And like everything, it was always hard to get the financing, and which I was always shocked. I thought people would want to support this, but it's a real struggle. We really struggled to get people's support and stuff. And then, about 2 weeks before filming, I had an investor came along, Dan Hegel. He came along and saved our bacon and got us some money, and we were able to go there and shoot it. And but it was
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah.
Can you talk about that journey? Because that's one of those things that some people can be cagey about. We understand that, and we respect the fact that there's certain things that folks can't talk about for whatever reasons.
Mm.
But it's one of those things that we know that the industry, at least our audience, really needs help with. So could you talk about that? Like you said, Rick, how did you raise the funds for this?
Sure.
Who did you talk to? I mean, there's a lot here, right? I mean, you talk about mental health, you talk about veterans, PTSD, you know, there's a lot of people who support these causes. There's people who want to be in film. So I'm just curious, like, how did you go about it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that it is a question I get asked all the time, is, you know, how finding money and raising money and all that sort of stuff. And it just like the one of the things I find the easiest thing to do is make something very cheaply, because the hardest thing is to raise, you know, I mean, the biggest tragedy is you have someone who's saying, I want to make my first film and it's $10 million and they've never made a film before. And I'm like, well, don't do that. One, you're not going to get the money. And two, if you do, because I have seen people get that money for their first film, it's not going to be any good because this is your first film. And there's no prodigies in filmmaking. Everyone starts off with a clunky mess. Everybody, Scorsese, everybody, you name it. No one's started off perfect. And then even if you're, you know, so that's the first lesson, is try to shrink down the budget. It's like Alice in Wonderland. You got to shrink to get through that door. You got to shrink down. And look, at least you'll get something done. And I know some people are perfectionists and this, that. Well, you got to stop trying to be perfectionists. You got to just get out and get the work done. And you know, and we talk about Tyler Perry. I mean, he used to go out and do, you know, theater in churches and stuff like that, and that's how he started. And you know.
That's right.
You know, just hustling and just doing it. You know, you just got to get the work going, because if you're doing something, that's the thing. If he was just sitting at home and I've got this script and that was it, then nothing would have happened. But if you went out there and sometimes it could be doing a play, you know, it could be putting on something, and you just keep that rhythm going, you keep moving forward. That's a huge number one lesson. And the problem is, I do find these days it's getting younger filmmakers are getting more and more, I guess, because of what we're seeing is so kind of synthetic all the time, is that, and the budgets are so gigantic and they're bigger and bigger and bigger. You know, they find that very hard to do anything that doesn't look perfect, doesn't look amazing. And then they don't want, and and they're afraid, because they're afraid that someone's going to say your film is crap and you should quit, which is what they probably will say. But that's the other lesson, is that you got to also be prepared to put something out there that everyone's going to take a dump on and shred. And that's the person who then does another thing and keeps going. That's the person who's going to succeed, because they probably won't like it. And because everyone, you know, because it's low budget or it's got no money, it's like, it wasn't your fault. You could only raise so much money. So, but you've got to, so one hand, you've got to make the budgets really small to get going. And two, you've got to then have a steel jaw and go and be prepared to get your ass kicked as you go out, because it's hard making the film. It's harder getting the film, not even just the distribution, but it's hard just getting your work out there and have everybody judging it. And they are harsh and they will not hold back. And they're comparing your $10,000 film to Christopher Nolan's $200 million film.
Yep.
And it's like,
that's not fair.
That's not fair, but that's unfortunately how it is. But back to with The Keeper, I mean, we did things like crowdfunding for a bit, which I really detest. I hate crowdfunding for me, because I'm not a cool hip 20-year-old on with $1,000.
What was your what outside of that? Is there any other reason why you hate crowdfunding? Just curious.
Well, I don't. I can't. It doesn't work for me. I think if you've got a big following and stuff, you can certainly make it work for you. And I think if you've got a great social media platform and you've already built that up and you've got millions of people following you, sure, it will probably work. Whether the thing that you raise money for, if it's a film, will translate to your audience, that's another story. Because I think if you built your audience as a social media YouTube star or something like that, creating a movie over this side doesn't necessarily work. You might get the money for it, but they may not necessarily go over here and see it. So, but yeah, I find just it's never really been very effective for me, but it can certainly work for some people, and I've seen it working for some people. But I think it's you just got to be, but it's a lot of work. So you put in as much work doing a crowdfund, trying to reach smaller investors that way as you do finding bigger funding. Yeah. Right. So I'd rather spend more time trying to find investors who, have the money, and then because ultimately you want to continue to grow your business and keep growing it. And so, crowdfunding is great for a one-off thing, but if you want to do more things, then you definitely need to really work on finding investors. And really, it's doing the work, because if they've got nothing, if they can't see anything, if someone came to me with something and they wanted me to invest and there's no track record of anything, it's a little bit riskier, because it's like, the thing is, there's other areas of filmmaking that a lot of young filmmakers don't understand, and that is just holding the whole crazy ship together, because there's a lot of leadership and there's a lot of all that. You need to be able to, because egos and all sorts of crazy stuff happen. So if you've never actually gone through a whole feature film before, that's a bit of a red flag. And so, that's why it's so important to go out there I'm not a huge fan of doing shorts. I understand proof of concept, but I'm like, shorts are great to wear in summer, but I think if you want to make a real film, go out and shoot a real film. And you can't make any money out of short. And that's always like, you made and then you would see people do proof of concept shorts that cost them $100,000, and I'm like, you just blew your whole budget on 10 minutes.
Right.
Yeah,
No, don't do that.
Yeah,
people do that.
And
Don't do it.
We've had guests recently that have made what they would call a 40-minute short. That's not a short to me and Nick, but I mean, we've had people do that, and we've had guests that we talked to recently that I think this episode isn't even published yet, that are like, no, we're going to make shorts profitable. And like, we've heard that many, many times. So I'm like, yeah, go for it. We need to do that. But also I've seen and heard somebody say that before. And I've heard a lot of people try to sort of turn that leaf. It's very difficult. I do agree with you. And it's not a popular opinion, but I do agree with you about crowdfunding, and not because of the fact that the work is equal, which I completely agree with. But it's because of like how you want to design and sort of construct your film in pre-production is so important. So, you want to have the proper financial structure, right? You want to pick a location where you're getting no less than 32% from the taxpayers, right? You want to, have your bank partner involved at 30%, and you want to have, minimum, but not at 50% either, or 70% or whatever. And then you want to have some equity partners. So you don't want your equity side of that to be 100 people that pay $20 that feel like you owe them the world. Like, you wouldn't have made this movie without me. People who just like don't understand what filmmakers do, kind of like the tech bros who are like lauding Sora, don't understand what filmmakers actually do, right? They think filmmakers just like pop this thing out. No. It's an uber collaborative thing. And just so you know, me and Nick have got 3 feature films in worldwide distribution. Now we've done a bunch of shorts. I just did a short this last weekend. So I'm not against shorts. I totally get what you're saying about go and make a feature film though. And we, but so here's the thing. That investor, that person or persons that are your equity side of the structure, those need to be like game changers for you. They don't need to be people who, I mean, we'll take it, right? We're filmmakers, we're indie filmmakers. Like, we'll take somebody who's just trying to hide some tax dollars or have a tax break and put away some dollars into film. We'll take somebody who's sort of a Panonica Rothschild, where they just like, well, actually, that's maybe the perfect investor where they're actually a patron. But the idea is this person shouldn't just be a check, because if they're just a check, then they actually have no value to you against the person who can write a check that's $1 more. Right. So I'll say that again. They shouldn't just be a check, because they actually present no value to your film against a person who walks in and can write a check for $1 more. So these people should know something about film and have some money. Maybe they want a tax break, but they also have creative. They also have a network or a Rolodex or somebody else they can introduce you to. Or, and this is the best kind, they deeply, deeply, deeply believe in your talent the way that your agent would or your manager would. And they happen to have the money to finance your movie. That's what you really want. You don't want a bunch of 20, you don't want 500 no names that gave you $20 each.
Yeah. So I know, Angus, we're like, we totally get it. It's like, it's a lot of hard work for little payoff. So for you, like when you were going out looking for your investors, I mean, you've been in the game for a while. So is it generally like you're talking to people that you've spoken to before, or are you looking for net new people who might be interested in the concept around this film? What was your approach?
Yeah, I mean, every time it's different, but yeah, you sort of look, sometimes reach out to existing investors,
Mm-hmm.
and then other times you find new investors, and also it's just in some projects it's just a matter of um, if we talk to a writer and the writer's got a project and it's like, well, do you want to help us raise funds, and the writer might have people around them in their sort of circle of influence, it's like they know people that can kind of help out, and yeah, because really at the end of the day, you're right, like people are wanting to invest in that's what you're really
Right,
selling,
exactly.
because you're the studio, you're the reason why, and they're not, I always advise any investor into film is that it's a risky thing. It's a high risk thing. I never promise anything more than just,
Mm-hmm.
it could, we mitigate the risk by everything we can do. But at the end of the day, you're really investing in the person and their passion and their drive. And yeah, but I mean, there's no real magic bullet in securing financing, except for the fact that it does get easier when you have something already in place that you've already done. And with this one particular, we raised a very small amount through a crowdfunding thing, which was kind of a bit of a waste of time, but we did it. And then the rest we got from another investor. But in other cases, we've risen, it's a bit of a mixture of different investors, and we just sort of say to the writer, like, come on board and be a producer with us, and then they reach out and they find investors, and it's amazing how many people, because so many people, because that writer has been working on that script a lot of times for 10, 20 years, and they've got so many people around them who are championing them on, and suddenly there's this opportunity to turn it into a film, and they've never ever once asked anyone for investment or funding or anything. And I always say, just reach out and say, look, you help me make my dream, and so many people want to do that, and they're like, yes, we want to help you make your dream. So that seems to work pretty well too. I mean, again, we're talking about smaller films and smaller budgets and stuff, and then as you get bigger, then it's another story. But at that sort of small range of, up to a few $100,000 max kind of budgets, you can kind of get away with that, and it becomes a little bit more bite sized for investors, because it's like, okay, we can all get behind that, and then yeah, and when you take the next leap, it becomes a different story. But yeah,
It's a good point about
Yep.
the writer, right? Like
yeah,
he's got relationship compound interest that ends up paying for the movie because so many people believe in it. So it's just, again, goes back to what I was saying before, and it just goes to show, like, as a creative, you need one or two people in your life that deeply, deeply, deeply believe
yeah,
in your talent. And I've had so many friends over the years, whether it be in music or in film, especially in music, where the people closest to their life were either just very honest with them about the fact that they didn't believe in their talent, or sort of wrongly sort of turned off the faucet of belief too early while that artist was sort of polishing their talent and polishing what they do well. And it sucks when it happens. Sometimes it's for the best. Oftentimes you could have let that artist sort of develop a little bit more. And it's so important to have your people in your corner while you're developing that. That being said, I think it's time,
It's that
for
time.
Things We Should Know. Brought to you tonight by producer Joe. So this is Things We Should Know, brought to you by producer Papa Bear, hosted by producer Joe.
By producer Joe.
Papa Bear, get better soon. We miss you. We'll see you back here on the next cast. But I think you're in good hands with
after the treatment.
after the treatment. That's it. And then I think you're in good hands with producer Joe. So Joe, drop some things we should know on the team here. Me, Nick, and Angus.
Yeah, man, let's do it. All right. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that you spent 9 years in New Zealand, correct?
yes, 9, yeah, maybe 9. It could be longer.
He's like,
I mean,
yes, it was kind of.
I mean, it could be wrong. This is just the.
Yeah. We were in Christchurch, and then we went through the earthquakes, and so all those years of the earthquakes were kind of a bit of a blur, but it was good for before that. but the earthquakes, and then we went to Rotorua in the North Island for a bit. But yes, I did. Yeah, New Zealand's great. Yeah,
very cool.
It's like Canada. It's like
awesome.
Canada.
I'm doing a trip to
right. Like everybody
like
says, yeah, Canada's great. Everybody says that, right? The people there are great. It's awesome. Yeah, it's perfect.
Well, that's what I've heard. Yeah,
That's what New Zealand.
Because I've got a professor who lived in New Zealand, and
yeah.
he's kind of said the same thing. Like everybody's cool, everybody's great.
Yeah.
I'll be going out there in the summer, so I got to ask you more about that later on.
Yeah.
But
nice.
for now,
right. It's good.
So I have a question for all you. You should. It's New Zealand related, so you might know it. If you do know it for a fact, then we'll just leave it to Nick and Chris to see if they can
Kiwis.
But my question for Kiwis.
Okay, that's not the answer. Okay, go ahead.
No,
Okay.
But good guess though. I'd have been impressed if that was. But anyways, all right. So here's the question: which of these actors was born in New Zealand? Okay, I'll list them out for you.
Oh,
Russell Crowe, Heath Ledger, Hugh Jackman, Chris Hemsworth, or Chadwick Boseman. All right, I'm going to list them again for you. Russell Crowe, Heath Ledger, Hugh Jackman, Chris Hemsworth, or Chadwick Boseman.
Okay, so only one of them, right, Joe?
yeah.
Only one of them.
Okay,
Yes.
so people are going to immediately think Russell Crowe. By the way, shout out to producer buddy of ours, Keith Roger, who is business partner with Russell Crowe in Australia. So you'd think Russell Crowe, but he's Australia, if I'm not mistaken. Same with Heath Ledger. I think the secret pick here is Chadwick Boseman.
I know, right?
I'm going secret
Yep.
pick, tricky pick, Chadwick Boseman. Angus,
Yeah.
what do you got?
Okay.
It was Russell Crowe. He was born in Wellington, New Zealand.
Okay, Nick, are you going with Angus there, or are you going secret pick of Chadwick Boseman? And did Joe just do bad research?
Well, no, I want to go with Chadwick Boseman. I want to do that. Like that's a fun answer. Like you should know that. If he was born there, you should know that.
Yes.
But at the same time, it could be one of those where no, bro, it's Russell Crowe. Like you should know that.
Yeah,
like
the certainty in Angus's voice,
especially
after my Australia diatribe.
Yeah, he's like
it's chef's kiss.
Yeah,
you have to kind of go with Russell Crowe, right?
Heath Ledger.
Okay.
Heath Ledger.
Okay.
I gotta give another option, man. I can't just, you know what I'm saying? Like Heath Ledger. That's my final answer. Done.
Heath Ledger, Chadwick Boseman, and Russell Crowe.
Yeah, and look, I miss both of them. I miss Heath.
Yes,
and I miss Chadwick Boseman.
I miss both. I like the fact that Joe's name rhymes with everything on accident. Every time I say a sentence and I say Joe at the end, it just seems to go. I just did it.
Oh, you did
go and Joe.
There you go.
Okay, so it's just accidental. I'm not really this smooth.
It works.
Okay,
right.
Joe, what's the answer?
I liked it.
Yeah.
Okay, so Angus was correct.
Yeah.
It is Russell Crowe. He's very, very confident for the right reason.
Yes.
I had a feeling you would know that one for sure, especially spending 9 years.
I went to school with
New Zealand.
Hugh Jackman as well, by the way.
Oh, nice.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Was he jacked in high school?
Very, very cool.
No. I don't know.
He wasn't jacked when he was
a couple years above me,
for yeah, but when he was auditioning, for Wolverine, he wasn't jacked. Like
no, he wasn't.
Not at all.
No.
See so Nick is famously swollen. As you guys can probably tell on your screens, but he wasn't always that way. When I met Nick, he was a very, very thin guy. He was waif thin. He was built like Chun-Li.
Chun-Li got them thighs, though, bro. Don't mess around.
No. What's the Indian dude?
Chun-Li.
What's the Indian dude with the long legs on Street Fighter? Yeah, you're built like Dawson.
That's jacked up.
But now you're like Balrog. Or like
right.
M. Bison. You're like M. Bison now.
My man just said that I look like freaking Dawson, man. I'm like heated. So mad at you right now.
That was a long time ago.
Dude, it's flash. You bring me flashbacks. Now,
that was a long time ago.
Joe, I got to tell you, man.
You're a whole new guy now.
Yeah, Chris is right. I'm going to tell you this story real quick. Very brief, because I like my stories, bite size, right? So, I decided I was going to get swole. I was going to start working out like the summer after my junior year of college. Mm-hmm. So I had been at this school for 3 years, and people saw me the way that Chris did, right? So then I get back senior year, and I might look a little different. I might not have glasses anymore. I might be wearing contacts. I might not be wearing blue and gray all the time. I might be wearing some little orange, a little yellow, a little red. You know, might changing up a little bit. Biceps might be on swole a little bit. You know, might be wearing this medium shirts. I mean, things might have changed. And I'm walking across the lawn one day, and I get waved down by these girls. They're like, "Hey, come over here." So I'm like, okay, cool. Let me go talk, see what's going on. I walk over to the girls, and they're like, "You go here?" I'm like, "Yeah, I go here. I've been going here for 3 years. I go here." "What's your name?" Your name, Nick, right? I'm like, "Yeah, my name." "Oh, yeah, we remember you." "Oh, yeah, we used to see you walking across the lawn and be worried about you." I was like, "Worried about me? Why were you worried about me?" "We were afraid that if a gust of wind came by, it would just blow you away." I was like, "Yeah." That's jacked up. I didn't realize everybody thought I looked like Dawson. You know what I'm saying?
You were skinny, bro. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah,
I'm your brother, man. I'm just going to tell you, you were a skinny dude. Your dad was wrong for putting you on that meal plan because there wasn't enough money on that card for you to get them snacks.
Bro, there was never enough money on that card. I'll tell you at Vanderbilt, one of the things I love, I'm going to tell you guys real quick. This, again, bite-sized story. Not the people who worked in the cafeteria, okay, at the school would sneak me food. 100%. Bro, they were bringing me extra stuff. I'd ask for a sandwich. I'd open up my bag. There'd be 2 sandwiches in there, man. People trying to, say like trying to hook me up. Nice. I thought it was just because I was broke. Now Chris is over here telling me because I was skinny. People trying to feed me, man.
Yeah, man. But look at you now.
Okay.
Just like Hugh Jackman.
Like
Hugh Jackman, who went to high school with Angus. You went from skinny and impoverished to jacked and doing well. So it's
a happy ending.
It's 2 happy endings.
Don't worry, I was right there with you
in
too.
One. Joe, you filled in quite well. Thank you so much for bringing us the things we should do.
Wait.
We're not done
Oh,
yet.
there's another? Oh, there's 2. Let's do that rewind thing that Jim Carrey does, Nick.
Yeah.
Let's go back. Just roll back what I said. Yep.
Yeah.
All right,
Let's
Joe, hit us with the second
bring
one.
it on back a little bit.
Let's go.
My apologies.
All right. Okay, so we got. No, it's all good. It's all good. We're not used to having 2 questions, so I thought it'd surprise you for this debut.
And the first one was too easy.
All right.
First one was
Anyways,
too easy for Angus.
Exactly. So it's another list. All right, which of these directors is not from New Zealand?
Okay. The opposite of the other question.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly. Okay. We got Taika Waititi. Okay.
Genius.
Martin Campbell, who's known for Casino Royale. Peter Jackson, Lord of the Rings. Okay. And then Ridley Scott for Blade Runner, Gladiator.
Okay. Not from New Zealand?
Not from New Zealand.
It was the second one again.
Isn't Peter Jackson from New Zealand? Or did he just shoot Lord of the Rings
Taika
there?
Waititi.
Yeah, number 2.
Here, let me list it for you again. We got Taika Waititi for Jojo Rabbit, Martin Campbell for Casino Royale, Peter Jackson for Lord of the Rings, and then Ridley Scott for Blade Runner, Gladiator. The list could go on.
Martin Campbell.
Oh,
Boom.
that was fast.
Hitting it. Martin Campbell. Just bang. Not phoning a friend.
Okay.
Just hit the button. Yep.
I'm going to go
Go for
with
it.
Ridley
All right, I like it.
Scott.
Okay.
Ridley Scott.
Angus is looking confident.
He knows this.
It's Ridley Scott. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, Angus is correct.
I said Ridley Scott too. Ridley.
Chris was right.
Oh, yeah, it's
Chris
good.
was right.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you know how rare this is,
and
Angus, that I
were
actually
correct.
got this right? Like, this is so rare.
Yeah, you did
This
well.
is nuts.
Well, it's because you got me, guys. I mean, I'm giving you guys layups here.
Dude, I'm sitting here like, nah, I'm just answering. Boom, hit the button. I have no clue. Like, what am I gonna do? I'm
I know,
gonna
Nick
guess.
was so
Well, this
confident,
movie
too.
was done here, and his parents were. I'm like, nah, man, just push the button. You know, like
Someone's gonna be in a trivia bar in Vermont, and they're gonna have heard our podcast, and that is the only place this information is gonna be useful.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
in Vermont.
but now everyone, including us, now knows Russell Crowe born in New Zealand, Ridley Scott not.
Not.
Right. Ridley Scott.
Exactly.
Not. And I'll leave you with this one thing. This last thing. I have one piece of trivia for Joseph. You ready?
Oh,
Yeah.
All right,
'Cause
let's
I
hear it.
appreciate
I'm
you.
awful at trivia.
Oh, this is great,
I'm gonna
bro. And
embarrass myself
And
next
I'm
time
gonna
on the
mess
pod.
you up because it's not trivia. Spell Massachusetts.
Oh. Let me pull up chat. Let me pull up
Not
chat.
Don't you
fair.
worry about it, bro. Nobody knows how to spell Massachusetts. It's like me saying spell vacuum backwards. You're just not gonna do
just
it.
I need one of those neural links, man.
You're right. Don't even worry
Connect
about
to
it, bro.
the
Don't even worry about it.
think about the dictionary, then it shoots the letters into your.
You're right. Exactly.
your
Yeah,
head.
seriously,
It reminds me of that.
ChatGPT is just always listening.
There he goes. It'll
Puts
get
it in
it.
there.
That Patrice O'Neill joke.
No, you always got one, man, in your back pocket.
It's so
Patrice
good.
is a
Patrice,
boy.
the comic, man, maybe greatest of all time. Go watch Elephant in the Room. It's probably on YouTube, legally or illegally, but it's worth
Right.
your time. Like, go watch it. It's one of the greatest stand-ups shows you'll ever see. It's called Elephant in the Room. Patrice O'Neill. And he has this joke that if someone had a gun to my mom's head and all I had to do was spell a restaurant, she'd be he'd be like, sorry, I love you, Mom. You always been there for me, Mom. Spell it.
You're right.
You know,
Can't
so
do it.
yeah,
I
it's
love
just a thing you don't even think about. There are things you learn in school that just like don't apply to your real life on a day-to-day basis at all. And spelling, for the most part, especially when you have like word processors, that's one of them.
Yeah, well, especially when you talk in
That's how it
emojis. You know, that's the other thing. It's like, and everything is fixing your text now. Man, I still put punctuation. You know, it's like people, I'm sure people are like, he put a comma in this joint. I'm like,
Well,
yes.
handwriting too, man. Handwriting is like a lost art. Like my mom's a great teacher, and especially like the post-COVID kids, like you notice that like they're like handwriting at like almost like a kindergarten level. You know, like these kids like in middle school and high school, like they just don't have the skill to write because. I mean, it makes sense. You know, you're just sitting there the whole time, like just texting, and you got your computer, and it makes sense. It's a faster way to get your thoughts out just by typing it rather than writing it. And like when I was in middle school, you know, we were still doing like paper pen tests and stuff like that. And now it's just all on your computer.
No, man. See, that's the struggle. No, I'm telling you, these kids need to have number 2 pencils. And they need to
have higher IQs.
No, they need to be forced to fill in those little bubbles, bro. They need to be able to have, that's it, right? That's the struggle. You gotta fill in 50 little bubbles.
Fill in these
and
bubbles.
You gotta erase it. Remember, and if you erase, you gotta erase the whole thing. Because
who erases like that, Nick? Why are you erasing with your full
because
fist?
you gotta get it done.
What are you really doing?
No, you gotta get this way, bro. This way.
He's
This
used
way.
to that
This
motion.
way. This
Jesus
way. This
Christ.
way, bro. This way. This
It's
way.
a family program. My God.
This way, bro. You're not watching me. So anyway, like I said,
I
stopped watching you.
You're right. He can help himself. What I'm saying, you got to get that eraser done, right? So because if you send it through the machine, it doesn't know what your answer is. I'm telling you, kids need to know that stuff.
If you want to piss off a middle schooler, Nick, buy him a calligraphy pen for Christmas. Who won't even know what it is. He won't even. He'll open it. What is this? Why did you get me why did you get me a feather?
A pack of number 2 pencils and that little individual pencil sharpener. We gotta go like this.
But Angus, do you remember when we were growing up and your parents might have gotten you, not for Christmas, but for any reason, like a really nice calligraphy set? Like that was considered a very nice gift. Yep. That would be such a confusing gift today. I don't feel like you'd be honoring the person by giving them calligraphy.
They wouldn't even know what calligraphy was to begin with. That's why I'm like, what is this? What am I supposed to do? Like, what? Yeah, no.
Yeah. You could look. You literally can look wise just by writing with one in public. People will come to you and ask you what the meaning of life is simply because you're writing by dipping your pen in ink. You just look more wise. You just look like the dude who raised the turtle.
Angus is going to do
his
that
name
now. I can see it.
What's the dude that raised the turtles?
Steve Irwin?
What was his name? Not Shredder, but the rat dude.
Splinter.
Splinter, yeah.
I thought you were talking about real turtles, bro. Like,
no, the Ninja Turtles.
Oh, you're talking about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Oh, we're going back to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, Splinter was wise. He was wise. He was a wise rat.
Okay. Yes.
And he wrote with the calligraphy pen, obviously.
Obviously.
Yeah, so there you go. Joe, this time it will not be inappropriate for me to say this. Thank you. I did need to know that.
Yeah.
I'm glad he got some knowledge out of it. I'm glad I could do Papa Bear some justice and some inform.
Love you,
Appreciate you,
PB.
man.
Love you too, Joe. Great job, man. Ridley Scott, not born in New Zealand.
Not born in New
Russell
Zealand.
Crowe, New
He
Zealand.
was. Yep.
But according to my buddy Keith Roger, he's in Australia right now, kicking it, trying to make another movie. One of the things that Keith told me, though, by the way, that was interesting was that there's this, and you can tell me if this is true, Angus, or not. There's this sort of arms race to like lock up studio space because these states are sound stages. I mean, so these sound stages are basically selling to studios for in exclusive contracts for like 5 years, 10 years, stuff like that, especially overseas, like not here in the States. So a LA production can go to let's say the UK, take advantage of all their loopholes and tax breaks, and then only that studio can shoot in that soundstage for that 5 years. And it's so expensive to build a soundstage, and you have AI right there that no one's sort of going to compete and build another soundstage.
So you're getting locked out.
Yeah. You actually get locked out of making the best film you could make. Wow. And it hurts your ability to finance. It hurts all this stuff. Have you heard of this, Angus?
No, but it sounds kind of, I mean, it's a policy that happens all across the board, even with distribution and stuff. If you're a bigger player in your big studio, you can sort of, basically tell the theaters where you want, that you want to have this many posters. You want to make sure that your trailer's up front, and you can kind of dictate what you want. So it's definitely, it makes sense. I can totally understand, and it's really a big production studio kind of problem. I mean, it doesn't really affect independents and smaller filmmakers, but yeah, it's definitely something that I can see happening. But yeah, who knows what's going to happen with that? Yeah.
Here's what I tweeted the other day. I don't think it's called tweeting anymore, but here's what I posted the other day. If you wanted, like, how is it possible that no one has put a movie theater candy store next to a movie theater? So not a Walgreens or a CVS where all of the candies are, but just a standalone candy store that only sells movie theater candy. So they don't sell gummy worms and all the stuff that you have to put in a plastic bag. They sell things that are in the boxes, just like in the movie theater. And then what they should also sell? Purses. Like, so that you can put the candy in there and sneak it in
and walk in. Well, so look, so they've I think they're just becoming a little bit more lenient about that. So we have one. We got a candy store right next to our theater.
They only sell movie theater candy though?
No. They sell candy that you can walk into the theater with it. Like no one cares. Like you have your little bag of candy and you walk in, but that's what you do. You go and you pick. There's a bigger assortment. It costs less, and you go get your candy, and then you go to the theater. And nobody's bothering you. It's not like it used to be.
I don't think those
like
executives would like that if they found that out at the theater.
Oh, they do it. Yeah,
because the whole margin is that candy and popcorn.
Oh well, the popcorn you can't get right outside, but the candy you can. But we don't hide it because we thought about that before. It's like, man, you better wear your big coat. Everybody wear a coat. All y'all wear a coat, and it's like you got the one with the 17 pockets, right? No, man, we get a little candy bag because this is how it works. If you went shopping at the Gap and you walked into the movies, they're not telling you can't come in with your Gap bag, and they're not going to search you. They can't do that. So it's the same thing. I might have gone to the candy store. That's up to me.
Yeah. Right.
If I go to, that's my shopping bag. So they can't stop you when you go in, and no one bothers with it. So yeah,
that's interesting.
So yeah, we do have that, man. We go there all the time.
I think it would be smart for AMC and Regal to invest in those stores. So instead of like inviting competition, just make the store and then you anchor them with the price in the theater to guarantee sales and the success of the other candy shop, right? So it's $10 for a box of peanut M&Ms in here, but it's only $3 in here or $5 in here. So they push you to the $5 buy when $5 is also expensive. But because you've been anchored to the $10, then $5 is cheap and you take that deal. It's marketing 101. That's how anchoring works. But whatever. All right, just an idea. So I was supposed to ask you this, Angus, at the very beginning of this conversation. But before we wrap up, I just have to know, what does it mean for you to make it?
What does it mean to me to make it? I don't know. It's a good question. What? So, yeah. What does it mean to me to make it? I guess to me, it's like to be able to just, do what you love with the people that you love, and to be able to survive doing that. That's kind of it, really, I'm not.
Survive. That's big, man. That's a big one right there. That's
Yeah.
basically what you mean is like being able to make a living doing that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's the idea.
Yeah,
Take care of
and
the bottom rung of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
I have this belief that there is a certain degree of nepotism that's necessary to make a good film. Do you tend to, and I think Nick mostly feels the same way. I don't, obviously don't want to speak for him, but do you feel like for you, you make your best films when you do it with people you've made the films with before, or written with before, or produced with before?
Yeah, we try to work with the same sort of people on each film, and it's very rare that we, everything now is pretty much the same people from the last film, and we're sort of spread out around the US, so we might shoot in Texas or Redding, California, or LA, or Atlanta. So there's different pockets of these people and these groups that we all work together with, and so every time you build that team and you go back again and work with them, it's great. And you find out the kinks. You all have a shorthand. Everyone knows what to do. It's a big thing finding a great team. I mean, it's like anything, it's like any business or sports or whatever. It's like that's one of the biggest. That's the thing that no one realizes when they're starting out. And I sort of brought this up a little bit before, is that the importance of being able to manage people and manage people's emotions, and and there's a lot of things you've got to be aware of, and certain love languages, in a way, if you understand, like what is it? It's important to acknowledge crew members, and I mean, a lot of these crews work on big Hollywood films where they're basically treated like they don't even exist, even there no one talks to them. I mean, you hear horrible stories, and it's like the craft service guy, one of the guys I worked with, and he was working on one of those TV series, and no one talked to him ever. And then so they're used to that kind of environment. So I don't think it's that's something, having a great team, and also making sure that you take care of everyone.
Old school guest Molly Nierenhausen, who, I forget the company she works for, Nick, but Angus, she says the same thing. Like, number one thing to do, feed your crew well. And I've always taken that lesson. Like, every set I'm on, the lunchtime crafty is insane, and as insane as I can make it, and through the roof. And you will literally have crew members come up to you and say, "This is the best crafty I've had, and I've worked on like high budget movies." I had a crew person come up to me and say, "Anything you're producing, I will work on." All because the crafty was great.
Food.
All the food. And the crafty person, like, I play long-term games with those people. It's like I try to make it the same people, like the same caterer. Like, and I always introduce them to the whole crew. I let them announce the food, so they get to take credit for the food they catered, versus me saying, "Everybody come eat, and this is what we have." A lot of times the producer, Angus, will sort of take the credit for the crafty and like announce the food. I let the crafty person do it. So now everybody in the crew knows that person's name, and they introduce their food in a way that I never could do because I'm not as close to it because I didn't make it. So just a couple of things on crafty there. Nick, I know you've been chomping at the bit. You got something for Angus here?
Yeah. This is one of our, we call it our community questions. And I have two questions, but I want you to pick one, right? Just for time's sake, right? Just I want to pick one, because these were both, I thought they were great questions. All right. So the first one is, what does every non-actor get wrong about acting? All right, that's one.
So you're talking about Atreyu from The Neverending Story.
There, you're right. Okay. and I think this might be, but I think this might be more about like people who aren't in the business, right?
Yes.
And what do they think acting is like? And maybe it's not, right? All right. So the second one is, how do you keep your energy up and avoid creative fatigue?
Wow.
So pick one of them. I'd like both of them, but you know
great.
what I'm saying? For
They're
time's
very
sake,
good.
they're great, right? But like, just pick one of those, and which one you want to tackle. If you want to tackle both of them, go for it. But just pick one of those.
Do it quickly. Don't waffle.
No, we got time. We'll give it to you, but we'll give you the space.
They're both really great questions. Yeah. What the energy? Yeah. Okay. I'll start with I'll do the energy. Yeah. Like, do you mean like sort of to keep your inspiration going and when that's a really good question. I think the thing is when you envision being an actor, and on set and all this sort of stuff, is that in your fantasy, in your dream, and your when you're at acting school and stuff, you believe it's going to be this magical world. It's like when you see a city from afar in Vegas, for instance. It's all hitting into it. It's all lights and glamour, and then you get there and some drunk guy vomiting, and so that's kind of what it can be like. Is that you think it's going to be all lights and glamour, and then you get there and it's a drunk guy vomiting, and that's so. There's a lot of things, especially if you, like me, and you wear a producer's hat as well, that pretty much everything is trying to take every ounce of joy out of your experience all the time.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And it's always, okay, that's pretty dramatic, but hey, I'm an actor. But it's always trying to do that. And so every single little, so that's a really hard thing. So you get kind of constantly the wind out of your sails, and you find out there's another huge bill that's and this cost and this and budget and this, and someone's complaining and someone wants to quit. There's a problem with this and that, there's all these sort of things. So it's a little hard, like for me, when I'm an actor and a producer, that really does take its toll. And so you do lose your inspiration, and you do lose, you kind of forget that you're making a movie because you're just working and you can pull it, it's just all the work. So that's a big thing, because you forget that you lose that kind of magic stuff, and then maybe you look back later on, you go, "Oh, that's right. There were some good moments on that film. I just don't remember them as much." But when I first started out, when I did my very first film, when I did Lex and Rory, it was my first gig. I got a lead in a feature film. It was a huge miracle, casting. I got this amazing job. Worked with Dean Murphy, who I'm still good friends with, and it's his first film to direct, and we're in. And I remember that was the first thing I noticed, is that, as the days went by, and the long days and long hours and all that sort of stuff, and 12-hour days, 14-hour days, stoned at DPs who took 5 hours to have a shot, and all the other crazy things that would happen, you start to lose this doesn't feel as exciting as I thought it would be. And you're doing multiple takes, another angle, another this. And one of the things I found the simplest thing to do to kind of keep going is to go to a movie theater and watch a movie. And when you sit there, it's kind of like Nicole Kidman doing those little AMC things. It's kind of very true. There's a sort of sense of magic. And you sit in there and you go, no, that's why I'm here. That's what I'm doing. And I think it's a really important thing, not to go it still sort of works if you watch a movie like a classic or something that you're always inspired by on your laptop or whatever. But something about going into a cinema and experiencing that whole thing, you realize, wow, this is why I'm doing this. So I think that's the only way you can really, that's what I do to try and, feed your soul in a way, because your soul kind of gets, everything gets taken out of it. Then if you're doing something that's very emotional, that deals with a lot of heavy scenes, and I've done a few films like that, and there's a lot of, that takes a lot out of you too. So that's another thing that you then need to sort of top up again. You've got to be quite careful, because, that's taking a lot. You're crying, you're digging up stuff from the past or whatever. So you need to kind of replenish that by, being with friends and family and stuff like that. And, so, but yeah, it's a challenge, and it's something, you always got to keep working at. But that's my kind of go-to is, go and see a movie. And, yeah.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it. Chris, I think that was awesome.
Well, it's always a challenge too. I mean, it's good to hear everybody's perspective on how to do it. Kind of in a way, the same thing that your movie, The Keeper, is kind of addressing in a way. We have to get to the bottom of not the symptom, but the disease of why we lose our energy. And then why for The Keeper, in terms of The Keeper, like, why is suicide becoming so prevalent across the board, in and out of the military, especially in the military? It's always had an impact in the military that was higher than general society and continues to. I think there are some things we can point to in there, and the Keeper probably does that. But it's increasing in general. We know social media plays a role, especially for young girls, but there's something else there that's driving an all new sort of hopelessness, which ironically is what the never ending story is about, and driving and sort of driving a modern sadness that we have to, and loneliness that we have to get on top of. So it's just always good to hear people's perspectives on how they keep their energy up and how they keep moving and staying inspired, because that is enough to wake you up in the morning, frankly. Like it's keeping your dreams alive and keeping them fresh, and finding other people around you, whether you know them or not, to inspire you. So I look for that stuff. And that is the good thing about the internet today, is that you can just go out, and if you use the right keywords, you can find people who still make you say, wow. Wow. And I try to do that. I try to say, like, no matter what it is, even in mundane things, like, and Nick knows this, like, what would make this a 5-star experience? Like right now it's 3 stars. What would I have to add to this to make it 4? What would I have to add to make it 5, 6, 7, and so on and so forth, until you're just literally out of ideas. And then you can wow yourself and then create something new and incredible in the world. So with that,
yeah,
man,
and I'll just say this last point is just that it's interesting that the audience had this question for us, especially as it pertains to acting, is because we had a similar conversation with friend of the podcast and podcaster Adam Shartoff, right?
Yes.
Where we had the conversation where we did say that we get in that place too creatively, because there is the work of it. But, our thing, my thing was always just, I'm excited about the next conversation, right? I'm excited about doing the next thing. And sometimes that could be the thing for filmmakers as well, is that, you're going to finish this thing and then get to do another one. It's the act of and the art of creating that gives you that juice, right? That gives you that passion, that reminds you that's why you're doing this. That's why you are willing to deal with the struggle, willing to deal with the work, because at the end of it, you will have something, and your creativity is boundless, right? It's going to now draw you in to the next thing. So I think that's great that you look at other people's art as a reminder that this is why you go through the struggle, is because you admire the art, you admire the work, you admire the result, and you're looking forward to that. And I think that's great.
Yeah,
that's, it's huge. And I think I've said this on the last pod, but I'll just remind everybody again, this year is unique because half the movies that are up for awards for best film are movies that any of us can make in the sort of indie film world. Not in the sense that all of us have that level of creativity and talent, but the fact that the budgets were lower. Like you look at American Fiction and The Holdovers, those are movies that are doable, that had incredible writing and incredible performances by incredible actors and actresses. So like that didn't have any Michael Bay explosions. There wasn't multi-million-dollar CGI. There wasn't $100 million P&A like Barbie had.
Right.
So these are movies. These were what I've been calling just movies. These are just a movie, but they were awesome. And they changed our lives. So go out there, make, create, and then be inspired by this year in particular, the award winners and how many there are that were just going out and telling a great story. Angus, with that and talking about stories, can you tell us where to find and support your stories, where to reach out to you, where to contact you, where to follow you on social media, all the things?
Yeah, I mean, I've got an Instagram thing, which is just my name, Angus Benfield Official. And then I've got a Facebook thing similar to that. And then you can and if anyone uses that. And then we've got the Llama Entertainment website. You can check out what we're doing there. It's that's just www.llamaentertainment.com, and then there's a subscription thing there that you can kind of sign up, and then we kind of keep people posted about what we're doing. And we're obviously eventually going to do a little bit more sort of film schooly kind of stuff as well, so I can kind of, because I don't get a lot of people asking questions and about how to do it stuff. So I'm going to start doing a bit more of that, so sharing a bit more of the journey and how it all works as well. So, but yeah, we
Awesome.
keep everyone posted on that, and yeah, castings and things like that. So yeah, that when I have time. At the moment, I haven't had any time, but once I do have more time, that's what I'd like to sort of open up to people, because I know that everyone's got questions about how do we do this and what do we do, and obviously coming on a show like yours is really great to be able to sort of share that information with everyone, but that's how you can kind of find me, and yeah.
And will you spell that website for the people?
Yeah, it's just Llama, like LAMA, and entertainment.
We've asked you to spell a lot on this podcast. I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah, it's just LA. It's actually LAMA. Yeah, entertainment. Yeah.
All right, perfect. LAMA Entertainment, llamaentertainment.com. You know what to do, people. Go support our man Angus and let him know what you think. Reach out to him, follow him on social media, and definitely check out his films, upcoming film, The Keeper and The Weight of Darkness around the corner. Angus, for us, we're definitely rooting for you. We're going to stay in touch and always sort of be in your corner, front row with popcorn to see what you do next. For those out there listening, we have something really new that we're super excited about. We have a partnership with Bodega, which is a incredible sync company. And if you're listening to this podcast, you will hear, our first, as you heard in the intro, our first artist, which is an artist named Helen, independent artist. So we just want to support independent musicians. We know that, and artists, because we know that no film is full and correct and feels right without a great score, without great music, without great sound. Actually, a film, for the most part, unless it is the aforementioned Charlie Chaplin, is straight trash without good sound, music, and score. So we're going to support these artists. If for those who are watching it, why don't you get it? Well, we're working out like the copyright issues on YouTube, and we just don't want to be taken down. So when we figure that out,
we'll check out the podcast.
We'll bring it out. We'll bring it to YouTube as well.
Too.
But you can check out and listen to the podcast, support these artists as well. If you want to contact us, we're really easy to find. We are the Make It Podcast anywhere you go on social media. So just search for the Make It Podcast. We will come up. Our handles on Instagram are _ Make It Podcast on X, and I think IG only. But if you go the Make It Podcast on Facebook, we will come right up that way as well. On YouTube, if you go the Make It Podcast, I think we come right up as well.
Yep.
If you want to see everything we're about, you can go to our website at www.bonsai.film. That's bonsai with an S, not a Z. So BONSAI.FILM. And you can check out everything we're all about, podcast episodes, and everything we're up to, including our bi-weekly newsletter, Indie Insights, passion project. We love this newsletter. We pour our hearts into it. Not just me and Nick, but our entire team. It's free. Go subscribe. It costs you what? It costs you your email. Not that big of a price. We don't spam you. We don't sell it. We just do our thing and bring you things from all over the world of film, including insider stuff that just isn't anywhere that you can find, that we get through our association with the PGA and different boards we're on, etc., and discounts and offers and all kinds of cool stuff. So again, subscribe at our website at bonsai.film /subscribe, or you can go to bonsai.film and then click newsletter and subscribe. That way, it would mean the world to us that you do that, and you would join a cadre of creatives in film by doing that very thing. If you want to reach out directly to Nick, he is on Reddit at Nicholas Buggs, or I guess / Nicholas Buggs, however Reddit does it. But you can find him by searching for his name. You can also email him at nick@bonsai.film. And if you want to contact me, I am on X at Flame in Your Heart. Your is spelled UR. You can also just search for me by typing in my name, Chris Barkley. I will come right up. And we answer. Our pledge to you is that we will answer and respond to 100% of those messages. So keep those questions coming on Reddit and on X, and we will bring them up on this podcast. And so with that,
and I've decided that after this whole Willy Wonka situation, I'm no longer going to use the handle the chocolate experience. I'm done with that. I'm just Nicholas Buggs, right? Just keep it simple.
I think that's really wise. We used to have a podcast that a lot of other podcasts run right now. They have the same format. They feel like they stole it from us, maybe not, but it was called Married Not Dead. And within 1 week, we were just inundated with X-rated stuff. So you got to pick your names. You got to pick your names right.
Yeah,
we were having a relationship advice podcast, and turns out that has a whole other meaning in the zeitgeist. So with that, Nick, can you leave us with the credo?
Yeah, of course, man. And Angus, again, thank you, man. We appreciate you.
Thanks,
Thank you
Nick.
for coming to hang out with us.
Yes,
this
sir.
was great, man.
Thanks,
This is a great conversation, right? This is what we do. Yeah, our pleasure. So with that, I will say to our friends, our family, our fans out there, and our fellow filmmakers, be better, be creative, be engaged.
And thank you for listening. Nick, talk to you soon. Angus,
yes, sir.
Talk to you soon.
Yeah, talk soon.
All right, guys. You take it easy.
Guys. Peace.
Later.
Be good.